Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 28 female, have always had a strained relationship with my family, particularly with my golden child brother, Adam, 30 male. Growing up, the favoritism my parents showed towards Adam was blatant and painful. From a young age, Adam was the apple of my parents' eyes. When he was born, he was showered with love and affection. My parents have always believed in traditional gender roles, and Adam was their favorite because he's a boy. My earliest memories are of my parents fawning over Adam while I struggled to get their attention. They would laugh and play with him for hours, while I was often left to play by myself. In school, Adam was always given the best of everything. He got new clothes, the latest gadgets, and every toy he ever wanted. When I started school, I often got his hand-me-downs. Adam was enrolled in all sorts of extracurricular activities. He played soccer, took piano lessons, and even had a tutor for his schoolwork. Meanwhile, I had to beg my parents to let me join the art club. And when they finally agreed, I had to get a part-time job to pay for my supplies. Whenever Adam had a game or a recital, my parents were front and center, cheering him on. But when I had an event, they were either late, left early, or didn't show up at all. I remember one time I won an award for an art competition, and my parents didn't even bother to attend the ceremony. Instead, they were at Adam's soccer practice. Birthdays and holidays were a stark reminder of the favoritism. Adam's birthdays were elaborate celebrations with themed parties, expensive gifts, and all his friends invited. My birthdays were often not celebrated at all. Christmas was no different. Adam's presents would fill the living room, spilling out from under the tree, while mine were a small pile off to the side. One year, I got a second-hand dollhouse, while Adam got a brand new gaming console. When I tried to talk to my parents about the disparity, they dismissed me as being ungrateful. At home, the favoritism continued. Adam was never expected to do any chores. He was free to hang out with his friends, play video games, and relax. I, on the other hand, was given a long list of daily chores. I cleaned the house, took care of the pets, cooked dinner, and did the laundry. If I ever complained or asked for help, my parents would call me lazy and ungrateful. They also used to tell me that it's my duty as a woman. When it came to college, my parents paid for Adam's tuition, room and board, at an expensive private university. They bought him a car and gave him a generous allowance. I had to apply for scholarships, take out loans, and work multiple jobs to pay for my education at a state school. Despite all this, my parents constantly belittled my achievements and praised Adam for his mediocre performance. The breaking point came a few years ago when Adam stole a large sum of money from our parents. He had always been reckless with money, and when our parents discovered the theft, Adam accused me of doing it. Without any proof, my parents believed him and kicked me out of the house. I was devastated. I had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Luckily, a friend took me in, and I eventually managed to get back on my feet. I moved away, went no contact with my family, and started a new life. Fast forward several years. I got married to a wonderful man and am now pregnant with our first child. Now, one day, out of the blue, I received a call from Adam. He was sobbing and begging for my forgiveness. Apparently, he had come out as gay to our parents, and being very old-fashioned and homophobic, they disowned him and kicked him out of the house. Adam had never worked a day in his life because our parents had always financially supported him. Now, he was homeless and desperate. He told me that our parents were furious because he would never give them grandchildren, and their family name would not continue. He said that if I could forgive him and let our parents be involved in my child's life, they might forgive him and support him again because, in this case, they would get to be grandparents. I was stunned and furious. After everything he had put me through, the lies, the betrayal, the favoritism, and now he wanted me to fix things for him? He didn't even apologize for what he did to me, just begged for help. I told him that he made his bed and now he has to lie in it. I refused to get involved and hung up. Update. After hanging up on Adam, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I talked to my husband about the call, and we agreed that we didn't want our child to be exposed to such toxic and manipulative behavior and people like my parents. But a few days later, I received a barrage of messages and calls from unknown numbers, which turned out to be my parents. They left voicemails and texts pleading with me to reconsider. They claimed they missed me and wanted to be a part of my life and my child's life. But their messages were more about how much Adam disappointed them, and how he's not going to be able to give them grandchildren, and how they needed me to get him back into their good graces, rather than any genuine remorse or desire to mend our relationship. It was clear they only cared about themselves and Adam, not about the pain they caused me or my child. I blocked their numbers and decided to focus on my own family. A month later, I received another call, this time from a mutual friend who was still in contact with my family. She told me that Adam had tried to reach out to several other relatives, all of whom refused to take him in because they knew how spoiled and entitled he was. He was now staying in a shelter and struggling to adapt to a life without the constant financial support he had been used to. Hearing this, I felt a twinge of pity, but quickly reminded myself of the years of mistreatment and betrayal. I'm focusing on my baby and my husband, building the family I never had. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm learning to prioritize my own well-being. Well, looks like OP's brother and parents have shown OP their true colors time and time again. It's not OP's responsibility to fix their mess. Also, OP should never let people like that in her baby's life. They hurt OP. They will hurt her child as well, especially if it's a girl. OP needs to stay away from them without feeling guilty or sorry for them. They all made their own bed. And now let's hear the community's opinion. As someone who was also a scapegoat to a golden child sibling, I completely understand your decision. They only want you back because they need something from you, not because they've truly changed. Stay strong and protect your peace. Absolutely not the a-hole. Your brother and parents created this situation with their own actions. It's not on you to clean up their mess. Enjoy your new family and keep them away from the toxicity. It sounds like your brother never faced any real consequences until now. It's a harsh reality, but maybe it will be a wake-up call for him. You're doing the right thing by protecting yourself and your future child. Close in age. We have children close in age, the only grandchildren of my in-laws. My sister-in-law doesn't like me for whatever reason. It's frustrating. It's the competition between us and our children, and I hate it. I fold. I don't care to compete, but apparently I'm not allowed to cave. Sister-in-law is pregnant with her third. She announced the baby's name Christmas dinner at the in-laws' house. She's naming the baby after my husband's ex that he almost married. She, ex, even reached out to husband and asked for a second chance once he and I started dating, and her mother reaching out for her when we were engaged. Husband said he is shocked and is hoping she's just trying to get to me, and the name will change by the time the baby is born. I mean, it's just a name, right? I'm trying to act like it's all fine on my end and that it's not getting to me. Mother-in-law is now sucking up to me like she pities me. She's texting me daily trying to console me without directly saying for what. I hate it. It's eating away at me. It makes me feel like crap that everyone knows, but that's who sister-in-law is. Everyone walks on eggshells around her because she uses a relationship with her children as leverage. I guess I just don't know how to navigate this anymore, and it's getting hard to just sit there and take it because that's just who sister-in-law is. I'm ready to just go no contact and see them during Christmas if we absolutely have to. Am I overreacting here? Do not let any of the in-laws see that sister-in-law's antics get to you. Put your best smile on and say, "What a pretty name," and say it like you mean it. You show weakness or hurt, and if she's really deliberately trying to hurt you, she will keep twisting the knife. You can't change her, but you can change how you view things and how you react. Brush off all this stuff and stop looking at it as a personal attack, and look at it as the pathetic maneuvering of a mean girl with arrested development. She is so stuck in her high school mean girl ways. She's pathetic. I'd be laughing at her immature ways. Remember, your husband picked you to share his life with. Work on keeping that relationship happy and healthy. Who gives a crap what petty stuff sister-in-law tries? It's just a name. You are giving her too much power by letting it get to you. I'd reduce contact as much as possible, but try to find the sad humor in her latest petty play. Then smile at it, in front of her, so she can see it didn't work. Get a dog and name it after the sister-in-law. I think you should try and get over this. One of two things are happening here. Sister-in-law really likes the name and has chosen it for that reason, in which case family should be supportive and positive. She's that petty and ridiculous that she's naming a child after her brother's ex to spite you both. The poor kid. Imagine finding out why you were given your name, and that's the reason. Yes, your in-laws are terrible and have done horrendous things. But here, you should laugh that the woman is that stupid, that she's making the life choice of naming her kids something out of pettiness. When people do petty crap like this, the best thing to do is let it be meaningless. Your husband is not getting back together with his ex because his niece shares a name with her. So this is just childish nonsense that accomplishes nothing, except making the person responsible look bad, like wearing white to a wedding, or saying, "Let's go, Brandon." It may not stop the behavior, but it will protect your dignity. Backstory. It all started a few months before I was even conceived. My biological mother, let's call her Chloe, was engaged to a man who we will call Carl. So Chloe was working at a Walmart while engaged to Carl and decided to cheat on him with her boss, who we'll call Harold. So Harold had no idea Chloe was engaged until they had been dating for a while. Things are going well between them until one day Harold catches Chloe on a date with his best friend. This leads to a big fight where Chloe hits Harold and he has to lock her out of the house to protect himself. She calls the police on him, and due to the crappy domestic dispute laws in their state, they both spend the night in jail. Somehow, Harold is blamed for the incident and is ordered to take 2 years of anger management and decides never to speak to Chloe again. A few weeks later, Harold gets a text from one of his friends telling him that Chloe is pregnant and that Harold is the father. He immediately calls BS because Chloe is not only engaged to another man who is probably the father, but was also being intimate with many other men. So he brushes it off and forgets about it. A couple of months pass, and Harold gets a call from an adoption agency saying that they need to talk to him. Chloe has decided to give the baby, "Hey, that's me," up for adoption, and Harold needs to sign some papers since she put him down as the father. He agrees to sit down with someone from the agency, but only to talk to them about the claims. So he meets a representative and tells them that he doesn't think he's the father. The guy from the agency goes, "Oh, great, just sign here then," and hands Harold the documents to surrender his rights as a father. Harold signs them and doesn't hear anything from them again. Meanwhile, with Chloe, she has the baby with her fiancé in the room, which gives me infinite respect for him, and the baby is adopted 3 days later. Unfortunately, the baby, who is me, was born with a slew of genetic illnesses, and I end up in the hospital only 20 days later because my kidney was collapsing in on itself. To save time, let's just say that growing up, I spent a disgusting amount of time in the hospital. My health was in a perpetual downward spiral, and every time we found a solution to one problem, a new one would pop up and wreak havoc on my tiny body. It all came to a head one day when I was 13, when I was in so much pain that my doctors thought I was having a heart attack. I wasn't, but hadn't been diagnosed yet, so they had no clue. So after being told by my doctors in the hospital that I had a heart attack, my adopted dad, who we'll call Marcus, freaked out and finally reached out to Harold for the first time. He asked for his medical records so that they could better assess the situation and decide what to do. Here is where the problem started. The first incident. So while I was busy being cripplingly ill, Harold had forgotten all about me and started a new life with a woman he met a month after my birth. Let's call her Heather, because she reminds me of Heather Duke. They had 2 sons at the time, and Harold hadn't told Heather anything about maybe having another kid. To clarify, I wasn't there for this part, so I am only telling what I have been told happened. So Heather finds the email that my dad sent to Harold and absolutely loses her mind. She thinks he cheated on her or something, and blocks my dad on Facebook and starts messaging Chloe on Facebook. Now, this is where the story gets a little tricky. I've been told 2 different versions of this event, and honestly, I'm not 100% sure which one is true. So I'll just tell both. Chloe's version. Heather started sending mass amount of hate and harassment to Chloe, basically telling her to step off and get away from her man. Heather insisted that Harold wasn't the father, and Chloe was lying. By this point in time, Chloe was already married and had 2 daughters that she kept, one who belonged to her old fiancé and one who belonged to her current husband. And she had also built a relationship with me. She read me some of the messages that Heather sent during a weekend I was spending with her and my half-sister, almost 4 years later. She said, I quote, "Her grammar was atrocious, but I didn't think correcting it was the right way to go." Heather's version. Heather reached out to Chloe to talk to her about the situation and what she wanted them to do. Chloe snapped at her and said there was no way that my parents would put me through a paternity test. Because Chloe said that, they decided not to pursue the test. After these communications, all contact was lost, and my dad lost Harold's cell phone number. The whole interaction ended with no paternity test and no medical records. Recent events. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here is what has happened in the last month. So, my health has progressively gotten worse, and I now have to apply for disability if I want to pay for my ungodly amount of medications. The lawyer I hired said that having a full family medical history might be helpful. So, I asked my super smart friend to track Harold down so I could contact him. Long story short, I got his number and I left him a voicemail that was basically just me begging him to help me, and that I was sorry for intruding on his life, and begging him to not yell at me. He called me back after like 20 minutes, and to my extreme surprise, he was happy to hear from me. He said that not contacting me was one of the biggest regrets of his life. We cried together on the phone, and I told him about the genetic disorders I have and how I was worried for his kids. He assured me that they were healthy, and I cried because I was relieved. We talked throughout the week until eventually he had to fly home from his business trip and tell his wife what was going on. Needless to say, it did not go well. Heather was pissed and demanded that we limit contact until the results of the paternity test came in. Unfortunately for her, it came back positive and confirmed that I am his daughter. Here is where the story gets sticky again, because I have been told 2 different versions of what happened during the last week. Harold's version. Harold and Heather got in a big fight and she made him tell her sons what he did. Maybe it was meant to humiliate him, but if so, it backfired because his sons were so excited to have a sister. One of them compared me to Shazam, I think. Harold left to go on another trip for work, and he and Heather fought right before he left for the airport. He called me while he drove there and told me all of this, and said that he didn't want to lose contact with me again. I was so happy he still wanted me around, but I was sad that I screwed up his family. He told me it wasn't my fault, but I still felt bad. I got Heather's version of events much later, at 11 p.m. when I was trying to eat my ramen. She messaged me on Facebook and claimed that this is what really happened. Heather's version. Harold was unhappy about the test and said that I was too much too fast, but wouldn't tell me that because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. They told their sons and they weren't happy about it either. She told me that Harold hardly has time for his kids and I was forcing your way in. Now, I am a very sensitive person and have a habit of breaking down over the smallest things because of other stuff that's happened in my past. But that's not relevant right now, which is why I'm very proud of how I handled this. I texted Harold and told him that his wife had contacted me, and within seconds, he had called me and asked me to read what she had said. I read it to him and also read the apology I sent her. He apologized on her behalf and asked if I was okay because I sounded like I was crying, which I was, but I didn't want him to feel bad, so I told him I was fine and I was just tired. I asked him what I should do, and he told me to just be myself. So I apologized to her again and again while she snapped at me, and eventually she stopped, and I got to go to bed. Things were quiet after that, and I tried not to message them because I didn't want to get yelled at again. This morning, I got diagnosed with severe scoliosis, and yesterday with epilepsy. And since those are usually genetic, I texted Harold and told him he might want to get his sons tested for it. Apparently, this was a bad idea because Heather proceeds to message me and tell me to stop texting him and that I was not helping their marriage. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help and asking her to please stop lashing out at me, but she just texted back with, "I'm not lashing out, we just want you to leave us alone." I haven't responded back because her message really hurt and I just shut down and fell asleep to cope. I apologized to Harold, but he hasn't replied to the text, which is making me think that maybe they really do want me to leave them alone. But I also know that Harold told me the exact opposite. My anxiety is having a field day, and I have absolutely no idea what to do. My main goal in this situation is to preserve my relationship with Harold and try to get Heather to like me. What do I do? You don't need Heather to like you. Heather is not part of this. Block Heather. Do not speak to her. Your relationship is with Harold and Harold alone. It is entirely possible that Harold said things were going really fast. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means he may be overwhelmed, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's being very honest when he says that he wants a relationship with you. Heather sounds like a piece of work. Don't even waste your time with her. Get Harold's medical history and genetic profile. You need this. Then pursue your relationship with him separately from the medical stuff. Update. My girlfriend drove down to visit me for a week, and I was preoccupied spending time with her. I was really hoping that the news I have to share with you would change. So, long story short, I took the advice I was given and muted Heather's messages to me. The stuff she was saying to me has really gotten to me, and at this point, I'm not quite sure if I'm the bad guy. I called Harold and talked to him about the situation and told him that I don't think it's in my best interest to be talking to his wife. This is where things took a bit of a sad turn. Harold agreed with his wife and said it would be best if I just left them alone for a while. I was stunned for a few moments because this is the opposite of what he had told me less than 24 hours earlier. That said, even if he had said something else beforehand, I know that I have to respect his decision. I told him that I would stop all contact, and when he is ready to talk again, it will be on him to message me. That's where the call ended, and we haven't spoken since. It sucks. I'm kinda hurt. I know I have no right to be hurt about it, but I still am. I've come to the decision that it's not my job to make them like me. This was probably not going to end any other way. It's painful, but it's the world we live in. I'm sorry I don't have a happier ending to share. Edit. I still haven't heard anything from Harold. I'm starting to think that something is either very wrong or they genuinely don't want me around. I've stuck to my guns though, and I'm not contacting them. Edit 2. In October, 2 things have happened. I needed to reach out to him because my cat got sick again and he works in pet insurance and care, and I asked him for advice on what insurance carrier to use. It was cordial and completely professional, no emotions and nothing other than business. It hurt to see him act so cold, but thus is life. His wife, who my dad, Marcus, now refers to exclusively as Heather, updated her Facebook so that it says, "Stay in your lane, B," directly under her name when you click on her profile. I feel grossed out that she's acting like I'm some jealous lover who wants to steal her man. I'm his kid, not his affair partner. Also, I'm going down to see my girlfriend this December. She's been the biggest help and support throughout this disaster.